with the first pick in the 2023 NFL Draft.
Good evening and welcome back. Thank you for joining us as we bring you all things football all the time. I am your personal draft assistant, Dr. Brad.
Personal draft assistant, Dr. Kyle.
And Dr. Kyle, we are here again for another episode of Draft Anatomy. We have some patients that need to be seen urgently. I am prepping the draft board now. Which patient do we have first?
Well, this patient has been sick for decades. There seems to be no known cure. He actually had the first ever case of the butt fumble. That would be the New York Jets. Going throughout this process, I was looking at the records for all of these teams that we're doing. Every single team in the NFL. The last 5 years, there's a historic number of teams that just suck, right? So 3 of the teams that we're talking about today are 3 of the bottom 5 teams in overall wins, losses, win percentage. So 3 of these teams we're talking about tonight just have a systemic problem of awfulness and talent acquisition, plan, culture, whatever you want to say. There's many ways to say it. One of those teams are the Jets. So the Jets have a lot of problems. We know that. Seems like every year they have more and more issues that come to the surface. This last year, Aaron Rodgers, I think we can both say he's cooked. Now, some other teams might not think that. They're going to go ahead and try and sign Aaron Rodgers in the offseason. Maybe they'll sprinkle in a Devontae Adams too, or heck, get Alan Lazard and make his day. But as we both know, humans sometimes just don't believe it. They have to experience it for themselves. And NFL teams are no different. So one of these dumb NFL teams is going to go ahead and get Aaron Rodgers and find out the hard way. So for the Jets, obviously leading into that, quarterback's one of the biggest issues, as well as D-tackle and offensive line. So we do have a draft recovery plan for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is Tyler Warren at number 7, Gray Zabel at 42, Quinn Ewers at 92. Now I'll talk more about this, kind of my overall offseason plan once we get to yours. Who do you have?
Sure, yeah. So you and I were kind of thinking similarly here. I have Mason Graham at 7. That's just kind of how my board fell. And I was like, well, that would be a great compliment to Quinnen Williams. JT Tuimoloau, which I just butchered. Good. Ohio State guy. The flashes of brilliance are there. And if you can get the most out of him, he might be a great steal in the second round. And then Kyle McCord. So you and I follow a whole bunch of stuff. McCord is really surging as we lead up to the combine. He had a historic record of accuracy throughout his college career. And let's be honest, he doesn't have a wild amount of talent around him. So I'm curious to see what people will think about him. Do I think he's going round 1? Absolutely not. But I think you could take a late flyer on him and have him develop into kind of a game manager, good game manager.
Yeah, other than that historically bad 5 interception game, which was bad, he was really good. And like you said, not a ton of talent around him. Like we talk about Rondé Gadsden, LaQuint Allen from Syracuse. I don't know if they'd get the same limelight if Kyle McCord wasn't there. So I think he did bring a lot of juice to that team for sure. So my free agents here, my supplements, it kind of goes hand in hand with my overall draft strategy. Listen, they need a quarterback. They're not going to take one in the first round, and they shouldn't. Shedeur Sanders will be in hell in New York, and they're going to be in hell with Shedeur Sanders. Cam Ward's going to go before that. I want them to get Justin Fields. I think if Steelers fans were honest with themselves, I think they would have listened to me and said, oh, yeah, they probably should have kept Justin Fields in the entire year. Why? Because the Steelers have a great defense, as do the Jets. Okay. And who's coming over to the Jets? Aaron Glenn. He can do a lot with a little. And we saw him, his entire defense was decimated, right? But now you have the Jets defense with a lot of talent, and they're going to keep bringing in that talent. That's just who they are. If they can have a solid to really good defense, all they need their quarterback to be is Justin Fields, just to be a mobile guy, a guy that can do things on the run, who doesn't make many mistakes, who can run around when the pocket's trash. And let's be honest, sometimes the Jets O-line is that. And then with him, Tutu Atwell to bring some speed to the field, and then Carlton Davis at corner, and he played with Aaron Glenn with Detroit. So my thinking is, quickly, Justin Fields at quarterback. He has a great stable of running backs with Braylon Allen, Breece Hall. Offensive line is getting better, and they can contribute that with a Gray Zabel. A solid do-it-all tight end, Tyler Warren. Get some speed on the field with Tutu Atwell. Get your number one receiver, Garrett Wilson, and just play loose, play fun. Don't force anything. Your defense is great. Don't make a lot of mistakes. And you might not be 15-1, but guess what? You're the Jets. You're systemically bad. So just get to average, and if Justin Fields isn't the answer, okay, then go to Kyle McCord next year, or go to Quinn Ewers next year, rather than reaching for a guy and getting him killed. Get a guy that's a little bit proven, that has still something left to prove, other than getting Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, who we know what they are, right? They're old, broken down. They're not going to win for you. Get a younger guy with some gusto that's ready to give it all for a franchise.
Sure. And I think with both of our draft plans and the supplements here, we're both big believers that the game of football is won at the line of scrimmage. If your two of your biggest needs are D tackle and O tackle, that's not great. You're not going to have great success regardless. So I like that we both address that aggressively and early on in our drafts, because you look at the Super Bowl is a great example of that. You lose there, you lose the game. It doesn't matter who you got at quarterback. But I like that. I do like Justin Fields. I think Fields got a bad rap with the Bears. Steelers didn't really give him enough of an opportunity to prove. This could be a cheap flyer for the Jets. Send him a little short deal and say, hey, 2 years, $30 million. See what you can do as a backup. But yeah, I like that. Next, please.
Well, next up, this patient, we really didn't think he had a chance of surviving in the last procedure, but they may be tiny, but they have a chance to pull through. That's the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, I'm talking about Bryce Young, who, man, we didn't think there was a chance that he would survive this Panthers season, and he did, and he looked good doing it. I mean, think about the Eagles season for a second, how dominant they were in the playoffs. One of their most scary games later in the season was against the Panthers, mainly because Bryce Young was just doing everything possible to move his team down the field. And he looked like a stud. So you have availability there. You have a quarterback that you believe in. They have about $17 million to work with in free agency. So for their draft recovery plan, their biggest needs are edge, receiver, D tackle. So I have them going Tet McMillan at 8. I think that is your number one all day. We've talked a little bit about their receivers, but not ad nauseum. They have a bunch of guys that are just I don't know. Jalen Coker wasn't drafted. Is he a 2 or 3? Maybe. Thielen, they love, but he's not lasting that much longer. And Leggett had some nice moments, but did not pull it all together. So I still think they're in need of a number one receiver. And I have Princely Umen-Mielen. I probably butchered that, and I apologize. At 57, defensive end. I still not sure why they got rid of Brian Burns. That's a solid piece that you should start with. But their edge rushers are nothing to write home about. And much like the Jets, who have Quentin Williams, the Panthers have Derek Brown, and you need to surround him with some more talent. That way he doesn't get double teamed all the dang time. And then I have them taking Kevin Winston with their 3rd-round pick, the safety from Penn State. I think if they can get a solid safety in the back end who can do a little bit of everything, I think, if he was healthy, he would have been a 1st-round pick. So getting a steal like that at the back end, I think, is a good way to go.
Cool. We definitely were thinking similarly, but let's be real. At the end of the day, it's the Panthers. I don't really see them being smart in this draft, but if they wanted to get the best bang for their buck, you need an edge, and especially a guy that can play outside linebacker edge role well 2 different ways at Georgia. Look, those Georgia boys, dang well that they have been key to Philly repeating. Some of them might be young, some of them might need time, but he's kind of proven himself. And a lot of people think that Michael Williams should go here instead of Jalen Walker. And my problem with Michael Williams is the same problem I had with Trayvon Walker, is that there's just not enough there. There's not enough film of what he is. And I think if you're going to take an edge, take a Georgia boy. That's Nolan Smith is a great example of that. Late round guy, proven, but just, didn't know. And I think if you have the chance to go back, Nolan Smith goes in the top 10. So I think don't mess that up. Secondly, Xavier Restrepo. If we're going to make Xavier Leggett like our number 1 guy, then you need a good blocking receiver that's also going to come in there and just be your like cleanup guy. If Leggett is your X receiver, you need a cleanup guy. Xavier Restrepo is a ridiculously hard worker. I don't know if you've watched his like story, etc. It just kind of fits the bill of that like scrappy Panthers team. And then at 74, Andrew Makuba. Kind of where you're at with Kevin Winston. Like some of these safeties are going to go way later than they ever should be going because they're really good. And I hate to say it, but that Texas defense, the passing defense for Texas this past season was pretty elite. Mm-hmm. And I think if you're going to, and you and I have said this before, if you're going to support a young quarterback, you want to have a solid defense. You want to keep your quarterback off the field for as long as possible, get him rested, get him figuring out, hey, what we do wrong on that last drive. And the best way to do that is both address in free agency and draft some young guys that are scrappy, hungry, ready to come in. And you and I both think or agree, I think, that the Panthers are in desperate need of some culture overhaul.
Yeah, I think with Jalen Walker too, just kind of learning more about him, he does fit the mold of like an Abdul Carter, Micah Parsons, a guy that's very raw on linebacker and defensive end, but you can see the intangibles, you can see the potential there at an edge, a guy that can move around the line of scrimmage, who can do a lot of different things. I think with the Panthers defensive coordinator, to have a guy like that, I think could provide a lot of value to that team, especially if he can play off of a Derek Brown. If you can have another elite athlete on the field with Derek Brown, move him in different ways. We know
which they did, but that's a whole nother conversation.
And like you said with Nolan Smith, like Jalen Walker probably won't be, elite as soon as he steps on the field, but like the potential's there. And the Panthers, you don't need to be good next year. Like just keep building. And if there's talent there, just, pick them and work with them. You don't got to get this incredibly proven guy. Just build the right way. I think that would be a solid pick too. Supplements for the Panthers. So I have Peyton Turner here. Again, pass rush is key, right? Peyton Turner has done a little bit with the Saints, not quite lived up to his billing, but a guy that can provide pretty good depth for the Panthers. I have them getting Mike Gesicki too. I think Gesicki and Ertz are both free agents. I know they have Jatavion Sanders there, who I like, but I think to have another tight end, a guy that's a little bit older, but who's reliable. We talked about Adam Thielen. I just mentioned him. They want him back. Why? Because he's reliable, and Bryce Young knows where he's going to be. I think to have a guy like that who's proven. I mean, Gesicki's been on a few different teams, and people want him back. Why? Because he might not block that well, but he gets open and he catches the ball, and he's where he's supposed to be. Same with Zach Ertz. So if I was a young quarterback, I would get one of those guys just to pair him with my young QB. And then lastly, Osa Odigizua at D tackle. Like I said, we need someone to come with Derek Brown, provide some juice. I think he's that guy who can win those one-on-one battles, and that's what you're going to need. We talked about Jalen Carter, Chris Jones, Aaron Donald, the elite D tackles in this world. They get doubled so much that like you need your other DTs to win one-on-one. So I think Osa could be that guy for them.
100%. What do we have next?
So this patient has done some very illegal things, Bountygate, yikes, some other things that I won't mention. So unfortunately, we do have to operate on them. That's just our job. That's what we got to do. Unfortunately, they have no money. Even if the cap is going up by 20 million, they still will be negative 30 in the hole. So they have no money. I know you're Kellen Moore's biggest fan. And he has a big job to do because he's not going to be able to sign much or really anything. So we do have a recovery plan in place for them. We'll see if it works. I have them taking 2 edges. Michael at 9, Michael Williams at 9, JT at 40. Cam Jordan, he's probably going to take over from Terry Bradshaw on Fox. We need to replenish that entire Saints defensive line, and it's just not that good anymore. I think Chase Young's a free agent too. I don't know if they liked what they got out of him. Just replenish that D line. Jalen Royals, who's like the 6-foot, scrappy run after catch guy from Utah State, I think could be a nice compliment to Chris Olave, who's more of that route runner for them. And then safety Lathan Ransom at 93. I think what's his face? Isn't Tyrann Mathieu, wasn't he on the Saints this last year?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he's a free agent as well. So
he's also ancient. So
I think they're going to need to replace that. Will Harris is their other safety. And just an overflow of talent. We need to flush this team out, flush new guys in. What's your recovery plan for them?
Yeah. I'll get to mine, but I just have to say I love that Jalen Royals pick. I really do. My recovery plan, we're of the same opinion here. Let's get down and dirty, and let's get down and dirty quickly. Ted McMillan, obvious reasons. Jack Sawyer, yeah, we got to address the O-line. Cam Jordan was one of the first things on my mind there when we were getting around to this. And then obviously O-line help as well. We've had some hit and misses over the past couple of years of addressing the O-line for the Saints. You want to get the most out of the guys that you have. Like we said, line of scrimmage. And then I didn't know if you'd like my pick at 93.
I do.
Now, if you go and look at some of these stats here, including height, weight, kind of the character of the guy, kind of reminds me of like a much less talented Drew Brees. But if you're going to come in and be a whole new coach and try to win over the city, you might want to bring in a guy that wants to win too. Will they do it? Who knows? I mean, yeah, you got Spencer Rattler, but he didn't look great when he played this past season.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan Gabriel is very interesting. I think, there's been a lot of talk about these quarterbacks who have spent 20 years in college and come out pro ready, and he's one of those guys who's been in there for probably 6-7 years, right? So many gaudy stats. He does have really good zip on the ball. He's incredibly accurate. But obviously he had an incredible situation with Oregon. He ain't going to have that with the Saints. So I hope if he does get drafted by a team like this, they have a plan in place for him. I think with a lot of these guys, within the right system, these quarterbacks can produce at a high level. So some supplements. Unfortunately, it's not covered under their cap insurance. So my plan for them, Taysom Hill is taking up $18 million in cap space. I mean, that's so dumb. He's not even a quarterback. He's barely a tight end. Does he provide some juice and some good fantasy points every now and then? Sure. But he's not worth taking up $18 million every cap space. That's stupid. Get rid of him. I would trade Alvin Kamara to the Broncos. Sean Payton loves him. Obviously, he coached him before. He's costing a lot of money. He's older. You don't need him. Go younger. This draft class is ripe with running back talent. And number 3, restructure Derek Carr or release him. Moore doesn't seem to be a fan of his beat up old lemon of a car. He really is though. Like he's just, I mean, the draft picks that has been taken for him, the contracts that he's been given, I still don't understand it. Yeah, his brother, I get it. This is what brothers are for, but his brother will keep on saying, well, he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's not. He's not. He should get restructured, released.
Maybe about 8 years ago, yeah, but
right. I mean, it's he's not going to bring you anything great. Well, I think that's the best we can do. Stop paying gadget players that much money. Next, what happened to their nails? Oh, on the chart, it says they're paying $15 million for outpatient services from Ben Johnson. Well, I hope that helps them because, Lord, do they need it. Chicago Bears, $63 million in cap space. They have a lot of money to do some work this offseason. 3 biggest needs, though, what we've talked about time and time again is offensive line. Tackle, guard, center, get it done. Here's my recovery plan for them. I have them taking guard Tyler Booker at 10. I think it's a guy who I've seen mocked at like 8 and all the way down to like 30. So I don't know where he's going to end up. Probably somewhere in the middle. I think he's a dominant guard, though. Like if you want a guard that's just kills people in the run game, but who's smart, who's capable, he's that kind of guy. Ariante Ursary, tackle out of Minnesota at 39. A very athletic swing tackle. Harold Fannin Jr., tight end at 41. A guy who was up for the Mackey Award, who dominated pretty much every team that he played at Bowling Green, which is hard to do. And then Shamar Turner at 72. Turner might not last that long, but I think this is a good way to go. Offensive line, I don't believe in Matt Pryor. Tevin Jenkins is a free agent. They have no center. Braxton Jones is iffy. We kind of like Darnell Wright, but I don't think he's been as good as we want him to be. And, man, you can't get your young quarterback killed. He can't be running for his life, even though he might want to, and he thinks it's still USC. It's not. He has to stand in the pocket, deliver some throws to his pretty good receivers. What's your recovery plan for them?
Yeah, this is where I'm going to get a little strange. So first 2 picks, obvious, guard, tackle. Let's get in there. Both these guys are big boys, and both of them are flexible and have played guard and tackle. So you potentially have, okay, we don't like Will Campbell at tackle. Let's move him to guard. Try Ratledge here. Just some flexibility because they have so many freaking needs on that offensive line. Now, my third pick. You can argue with me on this one, and that's fine. I like Keenan Allen. I do. I always have. But this season was highly out of character for him. Let's put it that way. And I do think it was good to get some veteran guys in that room, help Caleb as much as possible, but I don't think he's going to be the long-term answer for them. And Rome Odunze can't do it by himself. I think you're right. If Rome Odunze is that big X receiver, they need some speed. They need a yak guy or rack guy, sorry. And Jalen Royals kind of reminds me of Smitty a little bit. And if you can have like a Smitty type receiver that's just going to go out there and make some missed tackles, get an extra 5 yards, anything to help the fledgling offense that is the Bears offense. And then my fourth pick, I don't know if you remember this guy. Josiah Stewart started at Coastal Carolina and blew it up at Coastal Carolina. And then he went to Michigan and suffered because he was surrounded by a lot more talent and kind of got lost in the shuffle. However, I think you and I can both agree that the Bears D-line also is okay. Like could be a lot better for what they have. And I think just an infusion of pass rush. Like if you're going to win against the Lions, if you're going to win against the Packers, if you know what I mean? Like you have to get to the quarterback. Goff has got one of the best O-lines in the game. Jordan Love just makes whatever happen. And then who's it going to be this time? Like Kirk Cousins 3.0 there, Sam Darnold, like whatever they put in there, it just works. Like they just have good systems. And if you want to disrupt that and lead that division, you got to get the quarterback. So they need to be aggressive on the line of scrimmage for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with the Bears going after Odunze last year when they already had Keenan and DJ Moore, I don't think they'll be scared of taking another receiver. Obviously not. Running backs definitely a need, like we said, offensive line. Their defense was pretty good. Like they kept them in a lot of games, and the Bears just couldn't score to save their life. So hopefully Ben Johnson can do that for them. So my supplements for them, I have them taking Brady Christensen, a tackle from the Panthers. Like we said before, I think versatility along the offensive line is key. And I don't care if you already think you have your 5 guys planned out. Get a guy that can play multiple positions. Because you know what happens? These linemen get injured. Like it's inevitable. Like you need depth. You need depth. You need versatility. You need guys that have played. If you're putting in an undrafted free agent at starting at guard, he's going to get eaten alive. Like you need depth at that position. Kendrick Green, another offensive lineman. You might say it's too much. I don't think it is. A guy that has played a little with the Texans, who a high round draft pick, but really has not lived up to his billing. I think maybe there's some juice there left with him. And lastly, Nick Chubb. I think the DeAndre Swift game is over. I think he has some juice. He has some versatility. He can catch the ball pretty well. Got some good shifty moves in him, but he just doesn't always follow his blockers, and he's not the toughest runner. Now, maybe Nick Chubb's career is over. I don't know, but I think it's worth taking a flyer in that division. That's a tough division, right? Like you want to be able to run the ball. I don't care what receivers they have. We saw it with the Chiefs. We saw it with the Eagles. We saw it with the 49ers, with Brock Purdy. Like when your quarterbacks have a good running game, you can do a lot more. It's just, the Chiefs didn't run the ball. They just said, screw it, we can't, so we're not going to. So that became more predictable. So if you can address the offensive line, address a running back that can give you some tough yards, you can make Caleb Williams' job a lot easier, which is what I think they should be doing.
For sure. Next,
this patient has a history of choking. It seems they have an allergy to winning NFC championships and Super Bowl championships here. That's the 49ers here, the chokers that they are in their history, well, recent history. They have about $43 million to play with this offseason. Their 3 biggest needs are corner, edge, and guard. So here's my recovery plan for them. I have them taking Kelvin Banks at 11, a guy that can play tackle or guard for you, a monster of a man. Maybe he could be Trent Williams' replacement one day. I think he could be that. Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State, a guy that provides a run-stuffing game for you right away, who needs to give you a little bit more juice in the pass rush department, but I think can develop into one of those guys. Jack Beck, who I love, out of TCU. I don't know if he'll last to 75. He reminds me of a Chris Godwin type of receiver, a guy that's physical, who can run routes, who can do things after the catch. Is he going to blow you away with the speed? Nope, but he can do everything else pretty darn well. And I think Debo's probably on the outs. So you're left with Brandon Ayuk, who's coming off a torn ACL, and Ricky Pearsall, who's coming off of a gun wound. And that's not even trying to be funny. Like the dude needs to get back to full health, to some normalcy. Like they don't know what they have in him quite yet. Obviously he did incredible things in college, but it's kind of an unknown at receiver. And that's not going to bode well. So to get another guy that can actually play receiver, Debo can't. We all know he's not a receiver. He's a running back who tries to run receiver routes and then drops the ball. He can give you some juice, but he's not a receiver. So get a real receiver. And then Cam Scatterbo at 99. Listen, McCaffrey, who knows what's happened with him? Get a bowling ball of a running back in there, man. You kidding me? Cam Scattaboo in that offense, of a Shanahan offense, I love it. Another white running back too. Like, why not? Let's go for it. So
That was like, let's address it here, Kyle. Yeah, I like that. We had some similar thoughts. Will Johnson, like, go ahead and lock down the pass defense. Donovan Jackson, I like this for the same reason that you liked Kelvin Banks. He can play guard, he can play tackle, like he's got some flexibility. I decided to double down on that. If you don't know about Holland Pierce, he's 6'8" and I think like 360. Like, he is a hog. He a big old boy. And I was like, if there's something I know the 49ers like, it's those huge guys. And like you said, like having a succession plan for offensive line is here. Like, he may not be a day one starter, but that's not what every draft is for, you know? And then 4, Jalen Noel. Jalen Noel has had a kind of an interesting career thus far. And I like him kind of as that speed guy, because you're right. We don't know if Debo's coming back. You're kind of gadget do-it-all guy. We don't know what Ayuk is going to look like when he comes back. And if you're left with Pearsall, who's more of like that, like you said, a route runner and just a straight up, like, I'm just going to catch the ball and go, you need somebody that's going to like stretch the field a little bit and be able to get down on those far lanes. And Jalen Noel just kind of fits that bill for me. Now, here's the problem, but also maybe the benefit for the 49ers. It's not a splashy pick. It's not a splashy pick. But then again, I don't know that they need splashy. Pearsall technically wasn't splashy either. Nobody thought he was going to go where he did. And, you know, he looks okay. He looks all right. So I'm with you. I think they have too many holes. But like you said before, like, fill what you can, do what you can to build for the future. But they need to do it quickly, or they're going to waste McCaffrey and Purdy and.
Yeah. And this is why my recommended supplements here, I think, kind of go along with the trying to win now mode, because I think that's what they're going to try to do. Their edge needs a lot of help. Nick Bosa is great. We know that. I think if they could trade or get Joey Bosa somehow, I think that would be smart. Yetur Gross-Matos is a good backup. They found that this year. I don't think he's a stud of a starter yet. Leonard Floyd's old. And like we said, their D tackles are a little weak too. So maybe you can even just move those guys around in any way possible. So getting Joey Bosa, getting Brandon Scherf, again, win now mode. The Niners have a hole at offensive line. Trent Williams is there. Aaron Banks is a free agent. Dominic Pooney played very well for them. I think right tackle, he sucks. McKivitz, like, who is that? Jake Brendel at center. Like, I think there's, you could make an argument there's 3 holes there in offensive line. So getting a guy who can step in, play maybe guard tackle versatility, I think would be smart. And then lastly, Paulson Adebo from the Saints. I think Paulson's actually had some nice moments with the Saints from what I remember. I think like no one's really talking about him, but the Niners have a need at corner. They have 3 free agents at corner with, I think, Yadam, Rock Yassin, and I think Charvarius Ward's a free agent as well. So, the 49ers aren't a team that like needs to spend at corner, like, because their front 7 is that good. Like, that's what having Fred Warner and Nick Bosa does to your defense. Like, 2 of the best at their position. You don't need a crazy good second, crazy athletic corners, but getting a solid one who can do his job, who is athletic, who's had some nice moments with the Saints. You won't have to pay, a ton for him either. So those are my supplements. Next, our last patient. This patient has been brain dead since 1995. They keep rambling. That's good. They keep rambling the same phrase over and over about how this year is their year. That was good. Let's see what we can do. They have a negative $5 million in cap space, so we're going to have to address most of this in the draft. So here's my recovery plan for the Cowboys. Ashton Jeanty, I think we know we have Enrico Dowdle, and it's just a kind of running back. So Jerry said,
Jerry's comment wins.
hope that Jerry goes all in, just yeah, that's what Jerry Jones said, and obviously,
Well done, Jerry. Well done.
yeah, obviously he didn't. Jerry Jones has no idea what all in means. He's lost it. He's senile. We got rings.
I think he meant to say 5, but for whatever reason, he didn't show
Well,
it.
they could be rambling that phrase over and over too. But yeah, offensive line for the Cowboys usually pretty good when healthy. It's going to be solid again. So my draft recovery plan: get Genty as your running back, make your offense a little bit more scary. Trey Harris in the second. They haven't found a good number 2 for CD. They really haven't. CD is a guy that you can move all over. You can put him in the slot, and he's dangerous in the slot. But he's also dangerous on the outside. So just getting another guy on the outside who's a real receiver. We've had enough of the experiments with Brandon Cooks. And who's their other guy that they have there? Tolbert, Jonathan Mingo. Like, come on. Let's get a real receiver here. And then Chris Paul at linebacker. No, not that Chris Paul.
He's a good point guard.
Yeah, he is. I put that one in there just because I feel like every year they take a linebacker and it's like, ooh, we have a steal for a linebacker next year. Ooh, we have a steal. Like, it's just inevitable at this point. They always get hurt and they don't do anything. So,
especially if there's validity to the rumors that they're going to trade Micah.
I would love if they traded Micah just because, first of all, he talks too much. And going on the Cowboys, it's just like, dude, shut up. He wouldn't be as annoying as if like he was on a team that was actually like good, but
yeah,
it's the Cowboys. So what's your recovery plan?
Sure. So should they pick GNT? Yes, 100%. Run that card to the podium. It's Jerry Jones. They're going to go Ted McMillan and say, all we have to do is get Dak to pass the ball. And then Dak will get injured for like 8 games, and then they're out of the playoffs again.
Yeah.
But you know what? If you miss on GNT for whatever reason, if somebody gets psycho and decides to take him before 12, Quinshon Judkins would not be a bad secondary option.
Yeah.
Speaking of bowling balls, that kid is like a greased hog. I can't tell you how many times I've watched him both at Ole Miss and Ohio State, where he's dead to rights. He should be tackled, and he just gets through there. They need to go back to that. And I think Cowboys fans would be receptive to another Ohio State running back based on how well that went for them last time.
True.
And then third pick, there's a lot of questions at corner for them. I don't know if Diggs, how that's going to pan out for him. I'm trying to think of the other guy, and I can't.
Ron Bland's coming off an injury. Kalen Parsons, not great. I mean, Andrew Booth was starting for them at the end of the year. So,
so I did have to pick a corner, and I saw that you got to pick Chris Paul, legendary point guard. So I thought I'd take Kobe Bryant, who, legendary. I'm just kidding. But yeah, Kobe Bryant is actually pretty good. And the reason I think they'll like him, he's got that like sticky, like I will be draping the receiver all game long. And I think that's what they liked about Darren Bland too. And if you look at Bryant's measurements, he's long. He's a long boy. And I was like, that tends to go well for a division that's starting to lean towards incredibly pass heavy. The Commanders, now that they've gotten Jaden Daniels, now Hurts. I mean, if Saquon falls off, we've now seen Hurts don't need Saquon. Hurts like Saquon, but Hurts don't need Saquon. That was the whole point of the Chiefs Super Bowl against the Eagles was we're going to make Jalen Hurts beat us, and he did.
Yep.
So if that whole division is moving towards pass-heavy offenses, you need to be ready to shut it down. I don't care if you have Dak. I don't care if you have Ashton Janty. If you lose pass defense, you're going to lose every game.
Yeah, especially like Micah Parsons is that dude. And if you get rid of Micah Parsons, then it's like, all right,
it's over.
Let's go.
Yep.
Like yeah, you're going to need a lot more than that. I like those picks. So my recommended supplements here, again, -$5 million. They'll find a way to finagle. Here's some cheaper guys. So Javonte Williams from the Broncos. I think the Broncos have seen enough of him, honestly. But just to provide, some depth for them, a guy who can do a little bit of everything. Again, he's not the long-term answer, but just a backup kind of guy.
The team that says this year is our year gets the running back that says in fantasy this year is my year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's fitting.
It always screws me over. Never
Always.
drafted him again.
Yes.
Elijah Moore at receiver bounced around quite a bit.
Okay.
When he was drafted, like, I think a lot of people were pretty high on him, but he just never really turned it out. But I think he's a guy that in a Cowboys offense where he doesn't need to be a number 1 or a number 2, I think he provides some good depth at receiver. And then lastly, Dayo Odeyingbo, edge. Listen, they had Osa Odigizua, so they're not afraid of getting guys with weird, crazy, unpronounceable names. So he provided a lot of juice for the Colts last year, not so much this year. So they need edge help desperately, like we said. DeMarcus Lawrence is a free agent. Osa Odigizua is a free agent. Who else did they have? Oh, Mozzie Smith sucks. So like Marshawn Nealon had some injuries this year.
You remember when they drafted Mozzie Smith and said, we got to steal the draft? Like,
yeah.
Right.
They said he was better than Jalen Carter. So I don't.
Yeah.
This is why they're on the operating table.
Precisely.
Yeah. So again, not much of room to do a lot in free agency, but enough that like the Cowboys can be competitive next year. It's just they can't continue to be stupid. They just like, I don't know. Maybe they're just destined to be like that. I don't know. But they have some solid players for sure. So we'll see what they end up doing. But one thing's for sure, next year is their year.
Their year. Yep. They kept saying it. I couldn't get them to stop saying it. I'm sorry. But hey, that's the end of our procedures. Kyle, hopefully they'll follow our treatment plan. Guys, thanks as always for your support. If you want to listen to us on the go, check us out on Spotify. We'll be back with you next Wednesday as we diagnose more sick teams. Good night.